Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
An implement with a shaft and barbed point used for catching fish. A long pointed rod used as a tool or weapon. Thrust up like a spear. The branch speared up into the air. Pierce with a spear. Spearfish. An implement with a shaft and barbed point used for catching fish. An implement with a shaft and barbed point used for catching fish. A firework that fizzes as it moves. An implement with a shaft and barbed point used for catching fish. A booking for musicians. They played a gig in New Jersey. A cluster of hooks, without barbs, that is drawn through a school of fish to hook their bodies, used when fish are not biting. Long and light rowing boat, especially for racing. Small two-wheeled horse-drawn carriage, with 2 seats and no hood. Tender that is a light ship's boat, often for personal use of captain. A surgical knife with a pointed double-edged blade, used for punctures and small incisions. An implement with a shaft and barbed point used for catching fish. A long pointed rod used as a tool or weapon. Move quickly, as if by cutting one's way. Planes lanced towards the shore. Open by piercing with a lancet. Lance a boil. Pierce with a lance, as in a knight's fight. An aggressive remark directed at a person like a missile and intended to have a telling effect. She threw shafts of sarcasm. The hollow spine of a feather. A revolving rod that transmits power or motion. A column of light, as from a beacon. Defeat someone through trickery or deceit. The main, mid-section of a long bone. Architecture. Upright consisting of the vertical part of a column. Obscene terms for penis. A long pointed rod used as a tool or weapon. A line that forms the length of an arrow pointer. A long rod or pole, especially the handle of an implement or the body of a weapon like a spear or arrow. A long vertical passage sunk into the earth, as for a mine or tunnel. A vertical passageway through a building, as for an elevator. Equip with a shaft. Thrust up like a spear. Pursue to a conclusion or bring to a successful issue. He implemented a new economic plan. Ensure observance of laws and rules. Apply in a manner consistent with its purpose or design. Implement a procedure. Instrumentation. A piece of equipment or tool, used to effect an end. Any instrument or instrumentality used in fighting or hunting. Any instrument or instrumentality used in fighting or hunting. He was licensed to carry a weapon. A means of persuading or arguing. He used all his conversational weapons. Any instrument or instrumentality used in fighting or hunting. Any projection that is thought to resemble a human arm. The arm of the record player. A division of some larger or more complex organization. The part of a garment that is attached at the armhole and that provides a cloth covering for the arm. Prepare oneself for a military confrontation. A human limb. technically the part of the superior limb between the shoulder and the elbow, but commonly used to refer to the whole superior limb. Supply with arms. The U.S. armed the freedom fighters in Afghanistan. The part of an armchair or sofa that supports the elbow and forearm of a seated person. Swell or protrude outwards. Bulge outward. Extend out or project in space. Put up with something or somebody unpleasant. Extend out or project in space. Be highly noticeable. Extend out or project in space. His sharp nose jutted out. Something that bulges out or is protuberant or projects from its surroundings. The act of projecting out from something. Extend out or project in space. Any piece of work that is undertaken or attempted. Extend out or project in space. Make or work out a plan for, devise. Put or send forth. A planned undertaking. Imagine, conceive of, see in one's mind. Present for consideration, examination, criticism, etc. The candidate projects himself as a moderate and a reformer. Regard as objective. Throw, send, or cast forward. Project a missile. Cause to be heard. His voice projects well. Communicate vividly. He projected his feelings. Draw a projection of. Project on a screen. The images are projected onto the screen. Transfer, ideas or principles, from one domain into another. Pierce with a sharp stake or point. Impale a shrimp on a skewer. Kill by piercing with a spear or sharp pole. The enemies were impaled and left to die. A very high narrow heel on women's shoes. Add alcohol to beverages. The punch is spiked. Any holding device consisting of a rigid, sharp-pointed object. The spike pierced the receipts and held them in order. Pierce with a sharp stake or point. Bring forth a spike or spikes. Fruiting spike of a cereal plant, especially corn. A large stout nail. They used spikes to fasten the rails to a railroad tie. A long, thin, sharp-pointed implement, wood or metal. One of the spikes impaled him. A sharp-pointed projection along the top of a fence or wall, or a dinosaur. A sharp rise followed by a sharp decline. The seismograph showed a sharp spike in response to the temblor. A transient variation in voltage or current. Botany, an indeterminate inflorescence bearing sessile flowers on an unbranched axis. Each of the sharp points on the soles of athletic shoes to prevent slipping, or the shoes themselves. The second baseman sharpened his spikes before every game. Manifest a sharp increase. The voltage spiked. Secure with spikes. Sports equipment consisting of a sharp point on the sole of a shoe worn by athletes. Spikes provide greater traction. Stand in the way of. Pierce with a sharp stake or point. To render motionless, as with a fixed stare or by arousing terror or awe. pierce with a sharp stake or point. A spear with a shaft and barbed point for throwing. Used for catching large fish or whales. A strong line is attached to it. Spear with a harpoon. Harpoon whales. A spear with 3 or more prongs, used for spearing fish, especially salmon. A spear with 3 prongs. The slender spear of the Bantu-speaking people of Africa. An athletic competition in which a javelin is thrown as far as possible. A spear thrown as a weapon or in competitive field events. The slender spear of the Bantu-speaking people of Africa. The head and sharpened point of a spear. An aggressive remark directed at a person like a missile and intended to have a telling effect. A subsidiary point facing opposite from the main point that makes an arrowhead or spear hard to remove. One of the parallel filaments projecting from the main shaft of a feather. Provide with barbs. Barbed wire. The pointed part of barbed wire. The head and sharpened point of a spear. The head and sharpened point of a spear. Be the leader of. She spearheaded the effort to find a cure for the disease. Someone who leads or initiates an activity, attack or campaign, etc. The leading military unit in an attack. Gear used in fishing.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.